had one client that I had to get a restraining order for.
What?
Let me tell you the story.
Have you ever had a client who's refused to pay you? Well, if you've ever had a client who's paid you late or ghosted you, in this episode we're going to talk to you about how to make sure that never happens again.
Wouldn't it be great if that never ever happened again? But there are ways that we can make sure that it's less likely to happen, definitely. We had a message in our community, the Six Figure Bookkeepers Club on Facebook, and this member said, "Hi, I'm looking for advice of what businesses and practices have in place after the following happened. I had a client introduced by a family friend of a friend type connection, not local, but understandable as to why they've approached me. Work was agreed and it was going to be done by a bit of digital and by post. So the work was going to be sent over that way because they weren't local.
Okay.
We agreed a fee. The letter of engagement was signed. There was no problems. I prepared the tax return and sent for approval along with my bill and explained how much tax to pay. I chased it up lots via various methods. Nothing. No approved return, so I did not submit it. Yesterday, I got a notice of a fine for late payment of the tax, but not a late fine for a late return.
So it was filed, but not
paid.
Paid, but not paid. Okay, right.
Yeah. So they must have submitted the tax return themselves. So how do you protect yourself from doing the work, sending a tax return for approval, and then not getting paid, and then the client submitting it themselves based on what you've prepared? How do you protect yourselves from that?
Ooh.
Interesting, isn't it? Interesting.
Oh, it's really hard, isn't it? I mean,
it is hard, but it's also, I think this comes with experience. So I do remember in my earlier days, I remember this, someone would come to me and say, I've got a VAT return that needs like filing within the next week. Can you help me? It's got to be filed and paid. And I'd be like, yeah. And it'd be like a big like rush job and everyone's hands would be on deck and we'd be doing it. And then obviously when the job was done, what was I going to do? I was going to raise my invoice as alongside the VAT bill that they had to do. And who are they going to pay first? They're going to pay HMRC. HMRC are bigger and scarier and have more powers and can actually send you to jail if you don't do what you're told. So I learnt at that point that always I get paid before HMRC because I'm always going to be second best. So,
all right, but this person who's posted in the group, they've prepared someone's self-assessment, sent it to the client, I guess with an invoice at that time, and they've said, okay, so my sort of backup is if the client doesn't pay my invoice, then I'm not going to file the tax return, but then the client's gone off and they filed it anyway.
Yeah, so what could you do? You maybe have a meeting with them and you share on the screen what's in the tax return and get them to talk it through and approve it. The other thing that, I did in my last firm was I would get people, I didn't take on last minute clients. You had to work with me in that tax year that I was going to be doing the work for, and you pay me monthly. So I was always paid upfront in the tax year, not anywhere near the 9 months after the tax year ended and when it was due to be filed. They'd have already been paid upfront. So there's some lessons here. In that instance, when someone's come in and say you've got the time and everything, I would ask for 50% of the money up front before it even started, maybe like another 25% before you've sent over, and maybe, again at the end, something like that. There are ways and means of changing it around to secure yourself. But
I'm wondering about like how they actually make the payment, because if you had, let's say you invoice them on Xero and you get them signed up to pay by Go Cardless, like it is connected to their bank account. So that invoice, that's going to trigger the payment collection anyway. So I guess this person was in a situation where they had invoiced and that person was going to maybe make a payment by bank transfer. Yeah. So
if they haven't got the money in the bank because they've paid their tax return,
it's true,
then it's going to bounce anyway.
Yeah.
So you do need to hold off from filing. But like
they did the right thing to not file it, but that is just, I mean, God, like
so rude.
It's rude, isn't it?
So rude. And actually, this is why we need to be really careful about who we choose to do work with. And this is part of like our AML sequences of events, how we do a risk assessment. The risk assessment, yes, of course, is for money laundering regulation purposes. But also, the more you get to know your client, the more likely they are to be a good client and pay you, and you're going to see out for red flags. But I'm sure this person did all of those things. I'm not saying that they didn't. But this is one of the reasons why I was Facebook friends with all my clients, because they couldn't really run away and hide and ghost me.
Have you ever had a client who's ghosted you?
Yes, I have had I had one client had all the excuses under the sun as to why they couldn't give me the information that I needed. I couldn't file the VAT returns. They wouldn't pay me. There was always multiple drama.
Oh my God, I had one of those too.
Yeah, always something.
It's all come back.
Yeah, and every time, and don't get me wrong, I'm a really empathetic person, and at the beginning, and sometimes I feel some people read me and take it as a weakness when I'm kind and I'm understanding, and I give them a little bit of space and go, that's fine, let's do this, let's do that, that's fine, we can get you back on track. And then they're like, oh, okay, she's not going to go hard, let's keep going.
Oh, our VA pulled us up on this the other day, didn't she? Because even in our community, somebody in the Bookkeepers Collective, when you work with us in our membership, you join us for a year because we know that this is work that's going to take time. And somebody was in touch with us about leaving the membership as soon as possible, was kind of the words. And we want to understand why that is, what some circumstances changed for them. And Gemma, our VA, said, because soft isn't the right word. Soft isn't the right word. But I think what you said about being empathetic and being really publicly sympathetic in that way maybe makes people think they might ask something of you that they wouldn't of someone else. Yeah. And she said it. She was like, you girls, you're running a business like exactly what we'd say to somebody else. Isn't it funny?
Yeah, she said, everyone's signed a contract. It's not fair on everybody else.
No.
And everyone really understood at the beginning, because we changed our model and made it a monthly payment rather than upfront. So in order for it to, it has to be that lower monthly payment, but over the time period. And I think it's because we sometimes view how someone's treating us, how we would treat them. So when someone tells me that something bad is happening, I take it and I think, if they can't pay me, that I would never want to do that. But talking about that, I have to chase bookkeepers. Lots of bookkeepers don't actually pay their bills. And some have ghosted me. Some have actually moved.
Are they your friends? Well, they've moved on.
I actually had I've used a company called Thomas Higgins to do a little bit of chase up. Just now, if people keep communication with me, and if they say, like, this has happened, that's happened, and blah blah blah, and this is what I'm going to do about it, absolutely fine.
Yeah.
If you ghost me, it's been it's been a while, so I've just engaged Thomas Higgins, and someone's not known that address anymore, and they've actually left the building. So that's interesting. There are other ways that you can find people, but I just find it funny that that's like 6 bookkeepers that I've had to file solicitors on, which is interesting.
God, I know. Jo, you are like, I don't know what the word is, like, surprised me.
Have I?
Yeah.
I think what it is like I say, there's a lot of people that have maybe got through difficulties and things, and if they keep the communication open, I'm fine. If the communication is completely stopped, they're not responding or anything, then I think it's right. Like, and they're not saying that anything's wrong, and we sell like on-demand training.
Yeah.
You can consume everything, and it's what would we be telling people, like, oh, just let your clients get away with it? What we talk about today, we offer services, someone decides and they make an adult decision at the time. So I've had some people, even when I had my last business, when it was, I thought that, I had the go card list in place, letters of engagement in place, people were paying monthly, like 95% were absolutely fine. There's still some that try their luck.
Yeah. talk to me about, I'm just thinking for the person who posted in the group, like, what would she do in this situation, might be thinking, like, what do I do with late payments or people who won't pay? It sounds extreme to go straight to solicitor. Obviously, we've got other options
Oh, and
around,
we've done loads. Like,
yeah,
these
this is
debts are
like
over a year old.
yeah,
Oh my
right,
God, yeah.
yeah.
Oh my
So like
goodness.
you would also be thinking, like, Zero's obviously got automated reminders, so you'd be like
Yes.
setting that up. That would just be like,
Statements,
yeah,
all the time, statements, letters,
yeah,
reaching out on, if you've got other communication. She had said like that she'd used various methods of communication.
yeah,
No, absolutely. Oh God, this is like I don't want to do. Do
no,
you know what it was? We had our year-end accounts
yeah,
done end of March, and our accountant said, you've got some bad debts here. What are we going to do about them? Are you writing them off? And it was quite a lot of money, and I was like, I don't know if I'm ready just to. So I thought I'd give one last stitch attempt
yeah.
and see if we could start that conversation again.
Being a good bookkeeper for
Well,
your business.
yeah,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
what I would do for clients. So why wouldn't I do it for myself?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. But then for some reason we put our business right at the bottom of the list, and I think it's the same
Yeah,
with bookkeepers. We don't treat ourselves as our best business, like our
no,
best client.
and we do need to do that. Listen, I have over the years had some appalling clients. Now, I now take 100% accountability, responsibility, ownership for the fact that I allowed their behaviour to happen. Now, I'm going to tell you a story of my worst ever client.
Oh.
And I am not excusing his behaviour because it was criminal, literally criminal. But if I'd have been a better business owner, it wouldn't have got to that point. So let me tell you a little story.
All right.
I had a neighbour who was lovely, and I'd done his VAT return for years, and he said, I've got a lead for you. A friend of a parent, a parent friend that I know, and he needs some help. So I was like, fine. So I spoke to him on the phone, and I remember I had very little children at the time. I remember going back into the office at 7 p.m. It was dark, it was winter, to meet with his wife, who was going to hand over all the bookkeeping to me. And it came in bags and bags and bags. It was a shop, so lots of till receipts, lots of checkbooks, lots of paying in books.
God, yeah.
It was that kind of stuff. And I got the stuff, and it was loads of it. And it was one of those emergencies, like VAT needs to be done. So I remember I started working on it that night. I got my team working on it. We were all working on it. And we'd worked with them for a long time, but there was gaps in our knowledge. There was always paying in books that were missing. There was bank statements that were missing. It was a lot of incomplete records. And we were, I don't know, there was just a feeling. And whenever I phoned them, I didn't always feel like I was getting everything that I should have been told. And there was a lot of stuff about children's shoes and no VAT. And I was like, I don't know. It was a bit fishy. Anyway, we got a call from HMRC, and they were doing a VAT inspection. And we decided to hold it at our offices, because back then I had a nice big table. And actually, my sister Marie held the meeting because she was the bookkeeper at the time. And I sat in the other room. It was all glass offices, so I saw what was going on. And the HMRC inspector came along, and the client came along. It got heated, and at one point there was screaming and shouting. And then,
were you in the room?
no, I was in the next room.
This happen?
I was getting up to go and help my sister. And then he went to punch the HMRC inspector. He picked up his rucksack and walked out of the building. That was unusual. This was my first ever inspection ever. And like, my sister was distraught. He then shortly afterwards drove to our other offices that had all of I was in a partnership.
Hang on, what happened with the HMRC guys? So he just, like, the client just left.
Yeah.
And
they both had, I remember these rucksacks. This is a long time ago, but I remember the HMRC inspector putting on his rucksack going, I'm going. And he just left.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. And then this guy was really angry at what had happened. I mean, HMRC just wanted him to pay his VAT
Right.
and sort out what was going on. And I think they'd found some things that weren't answering the questions, that, you know, they weren't getting the answers. But he was really angry and he went on a rampage. And he didn't pay our bills. I don't think I've ever received any money from him. Maybe a few payments, but I remember there was a big bill. And he refused to pay it. He then drove to our other offices, and I remember they had to go into lockdown because he was going to attack people.
What?
And then he said he was going to firebomb my house. Now, remember who had recommended him? My next door neighbour. So he knew exactly where I lived. And we had to get police protection.
Oh my God.
And he had to have, what's it called? Like a, he was banned from being in like half a mile of our house. Yeah. So that's how bad it can get. He was an angry man, being dodgy, and he got found out.
There was something else.
Yeah.
There must have been something else going on.
There was definitely something else going on. But we just didn't want, like, I remember my husband, like, trying to speak to him on the phone and trying to calm him down. He was just, nowadays I'd think about things maybe like, there were other factors at play that maybe I was a bit naive about at the time. How he was acting was not normal. But yeah, and that wasn't good for like my business partnership either, where they were like having to go into, they had 25 accountants in that office and they all had to hide in this back room. And the managing partner went out the front to kind of save them all, to just move him away. Yeah. And then that's when he said, I'm going to firebomb. I'm going to put like something through your front. I can't remember what they're called. I'm going to put it through your letterbox.
But he just decided that was you. That was you.
It was me.
Oh, Joe.
Yeah. So that was fun. So this is why maybe when people say, you really get stuck on your ideal client. Really? Yeah. It literally comes down to life or death. Yes, I am. I'm going to work with people that I like, that I trust, that are good, that we're a good fit. I'm never going to allow myself to get back in that kind of position again.
No.
But I do. I know a lot of people, and at the time, I would have completely blamed it all on him. But I allowed it to happen. I did allow it to happen.
All right. So that is a horrible thing to happen. Like, you must have been absolutely terrified, worried about your family. Like, I can't even imagine. And I'm just thinking, like, I think you've got to know, like, you just were doing the best you could with the information that you had, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But thinking about that now, what is the thing that you think you would do differently? Because the thing that comes to mind for me is AML. Yes. I think about all of those checks that we go through where we're taking on a client and we're like, are they dealing in cash? Are they like, have I met them face to face? Are they sharing everything openly with me about their business?
Exactly.
It's that kind of stuff, isn't it? And I guess it was a really different time in terms of what you needed to go through there.
It really was. But
he was a recommendation from your next door neighbour as well.
Yeah, who went on to be a client for many, many years. And right. I saw him only recently. He was devastated. Like my next door neighbour was devastated. Like, he was like, I had no idea. He's like, no, never seen him like that. I think he thought I was going to be a bit dodgy. So I think branding, being more visible. I was very much, I was a recommendation kind of growing business, which was fine. But I mostly didn't have that much of a, there wasn't so much of an online presence or the brochures and things like that would have made it very clear that where I was based, was on an industrial estate at the edge of town. It was quite quiet. We didn't have any signage. We were working in offices. Like, we were obviously a proper business, but back then, before working from home all the time in bits and pieces, it may have looked like a bit of a smaller operation.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. Rather than something else. So maybe there was some kind of outward branding that could have been improved to let people know, rather than just, I've got someone that'll sort you out.
Yeah.
And so
you don't know how you were introduced, do you?
no, exactly. And and like you say, the meeting up front, things like that. I don't think I did. It was such a rush. It was a quick chat on the phone. My wife will be down this evening. Blah blah blah. I wouldn't have done anything like that. I mostly said an hourly rate.
Yeah.
I didn't have any money up front.
Yeah.
I would have set out my stall so differently now than what I did back then. So I can see how these things would have come about. And also, this is why, people see AML as something to tick the box and be done, but I can see how it does work both ways in protecting us.
Okay, so that client was a disaster.
Safe to say that, yes, disaster.
But it's not, obviously, like, I'm really worried about people watching this now who are thinking, oh my God, better do my AML. But it really is important, and this is what
I've not told this story before because I don't want to scare people.
I know you don't.
And also, you can, another reason why you can see why I burnt out and why I ended up having so many operations, the stress of that. And, I think it is important to know that things do happen. Now, we are in a much different visible space these days. So the guy had a shop. He would, like, mostly have a Facebook page now and things like that. Things could have been tagged and, like, made. I could have looked him up in lots more ways.
Yeah.
Whereas then he was in a town that I didn't go to. I'd never been there. I could have gone and I'd go and look and see. But but now, I chose a completely different industry and I'd never do retail in that way again. So yeah, it's fine. So don't, I don't want to, I'm not scaring anyone.
No, I know.
But when you've been in business this long and made lots of mistakes, there are going to be some stories.
So what about the let's think about something a bit like more real, like likely to happen.
Yeah.
I remember you having an issue with a client who was paying you on, they had a contract, they were paying by installments, and then they wanted to cancel their contract with you. That's a real thing that could happen for a lot of people, where they've got someone who's signed up for a service and then they decide for some reason they don't want to do it now. Or
so yeah, this client was they were female founders and they had this idea for this product. It was very like Dragon's Den. It was a cool company. And I'd given them a proposal to do the bookkeeping, the payroll, year-end accounts, corp tax return, everything for the year. And they were paying a monthly fee. Partway through the year, I think they realised that it was a harder business to run, this product business. To get it out on the shelves of big retailers was really hard. And they were going to downsize everything, and get rid of lots of the team. So there was less payroll and things. But then they decided, I think they found a friend of a friend, I'll file your tax return and your accounts and everything a lot cheaper. Actually, I think one of the team members may have had like an accounting degree or something, if I remember back, from the past. And I think it was like that there's going to be a big loss. It's let's just, So they had a change of heart. It wasn't going to be this unicorn they thought it was going to be 6 months ago. And so they said, not only did they want to stop the service, they wanted to have a refund for the 6 months that they'd been working with us.
Oh.
So I always offered a monthly service.
Yeah.
So if you want to stop, that's fine. Absolutely. I'm only as good as the last 30 days. But with that, yes, we haven't filed your accounts, your year-end accounts. Yes, we haven't filed your corporation tax return, but in that last 6 months, we've been working towards that. You've had meetings with the accountant, you've asked questions, we are doing our reconciliation, and there is a profit and loss and balance sheet ready for you to look at midway through the year. And so they asked me for a refund, which was surprising. Now, it's because they were cash poor.
Yeah.
They were struggling, and that's where it was coming from, and they thought, oh, if we could get a few £100 back there, that'd be great. What I actually did at the time, I was working with Go Proposal. I'd used Oversuite for letters of engagement, and I reached out to the team there and I said, where do I stand with this? Like, I've not done anything wrong, but am I covered? Like, do I have to give a refund? And they actually just pointed me to some of the clauses that were in the letter of engagement and said, just point this out and just state this. And I remember writing this email. It was very like, oh, copy, paste, just write this one sentence. As you can see from the contract that you signed on this date, this is where we stand. We do not offer refunds.
Mm-hmm.
And they come back and went, okay, thank you.
Oh, I love that.
And I was like, oh, this is a nice experience.
Yeah.
Felt really grown up. Felt like I'd done the work that I needed to have done earlier. And I protected myself from that. So yeah, that was a good experience.
Nice. So it is really about making sure you've got all of the terms in your engagement letter that meet all of these things that we've spoken about. If you're facing late payment, or you've got an issue around payment with a client for whatever reason, you've set up the system, you thought of yourself as a big business, you've set out your stall. I love that. You've put the systems, you've put the payment processing in place so that you can automatically take that payment, so you know where you stand in terms of any sort of dispute or conversation in the future.
Mm-hmm.
You have the control.
Absolutely. And it's all about control. And I think when we start out, we struggle with that because we feel like we're less than. We're not, we're just so grateful for the work. So we start off and we're like, well, I'll do the work first and prove myself to you, and then I'll raise an invoice, and then I'll give you 30 days to pay. And then you choose whether you pay me or not. And when we go out in that way, that's when, and then cash flow becomes tight for you, and you become stressed, and then you become a bit like, oh, you regret taking that job, and you get a bit stressed out, and you're not as happy about doing it, and maybe the work slips, and you think, well, they haven't paid me anyway. And it's just like a downward spiral of negativity.
So if you've got any challenges with late payments, or you want to continue this conversation, come over to our Facebook community, the Six Figure Bookkeepers Club. We're here to support you. You might want to find out more about Go Proposal by Sage as well. We're going to share the details in the description, and you can go and have a look at that and a free trial.
Thank you for joining us this week, and we will see you next week for another episode of the Bookkeepers Podcast.